I hired a male escort for my best friend's wedding. 5 months later, he keeps a spare toothbrush in my bathroom, steals my hoodies, and falls asleep with his head on my chest after 12-hour shifts at the children's hospital. That is not how my life was supposed to go. My name is Danny, I'm 29, and for almost 7 years, I was proudly, stubbornly single. I wasn't waiting for the right guy. I wasn't secretly lonely. I liked my silence, my routines, and my empty bed. I went home, locked my door, microwaved something half decent, and enjoyed the quiet hum of my ancient fridge more than the idea of another human breathing next to me. My family hated that. So did my friends. My younger brother got married at 26 and already has 2 kids. My parents gush over them at every family dinner, then turn to me with that mix of pity and accusation. When are you bringing someone home, Danny? You're not getting any younger, you know. Your best friend is getting married, and you're still alone? They say alone like it's a medical condition. Then my best friend Jake decided to fix me. He asked me to be his best woman at his wedding and made it very clear that showing up solo was not an option. He tried to set me up with one of his fiance's friends, the same woman they'd already tried to push on me years ago. When I said no, for the second time, he acted like I'd personally declared war on love. It's gonna look weird if my best woman shows up alone, he said. Just bring someone, anyone. So I did. Not a boyfriend, not a friend, not some doomed blind date. I went online, scrolled through an escort agency with suspiciously polished reviews, and booked a stranger for the weekend. A professional. A man who introduced himself very calmly as Nico. He was supposed to be a prop, a solution, a body in a suit to stand next to me so people would stop asking why no one was standing next to me. I paid for one weekend of pretending. I did not plan on him texting me 3 weeks later. I did not plan on him showing up to my car club meetups for free. I did not plan on him learning where I keep my spare keys. And I definitely did not plan on the night we were high on my couch watching The Lion King when he slid under my blanket like it was the most natural thing in the world and changed everything. I hired an escort to avoid being judged for being alone. Now I'm terrified of what it would mean to lose him. If you met me now, you'd probably assume I'm one of those functional adults who has it all figured out. ID badge on a lanyard, sensible sneakers, laptop bag that's permanently too heavy. I work in IT support for a logistics company, which means my days are a blur of tickets, system alerts, and people asking, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" By the time I drag myself home, my social battery is dead. It's not that I hate people. I just like them better when they're on mute. I've been single since I was 22. That's almost 7 years of, it's just not my thing, every time someone asks why I don't date. In college, I tried doing what everyone else did. Bad coffee dates, awkward kissing in parked cars, text messages that dried up after 3 weeks. It felt like I was rehearsing a role I'd never auditioned for. At 22, after one particularly awful relationship where my ex told me I was emotionally unavailable because I didn't cry at the right time during an argument, I just stopped. No big declaration, no dramatic breakup monologue. I deleted the apps, blocked the number, and realized I felt lighter being alone than I ever did being half understood. My family took this personally. My younger brother Mark got married at 24, 2 years younger than me, and by 27, he already had 2 kids. My parents bring them up like a scoreboard. Mark and Sarah just bought a bigger house. The boys already know their letters. Can you believe it? Danny, don't you want this someday? Holiday dinners are like performance reviews where I'm failing love. They always ask the same questions in different outfits. Anyone special? Are you even trying? You'll regret this when you're older. I've learned how to dodge with sarcasm. I'm dating my job. My standards are high. Men are loading. Please wait. They laugh, but there's always that look afterward. The one that says, "What's wrong with you?" It's not much better with my friends. Most of them met their partners through work or apps and quietly assume I'm broken. Jake is the only one who never pushed too hard. He's been my best friend since middle school, the kind of friend who sat next to me at lunch when I was the new kid, who texted me stupid memes during my first all-nighter at work, who knows exactly how I take my coffee without asking. So when Jake told me he was getting married, I was genuinely happy for him. He'd been with his fiancée for years. I'd seen the ring before she did, because he'd practically sprinted to my apartment to show it to me, fumbling with the little velvet box like it was going to bite him. I helped him practice the proposal speech, rewrote it 3 times, and pretended not to cry when he told me how she said yes. I never once thought about what his wedding would mean for me. 2 months before the big day, he pulled me aside after game night. Everyone else was in the kitchen arguing over takeout. Jake had that "I'm about to say something you won't like" expression. "So, listen," he started, rubbing the back of his neck. "Emma, my fiancée, has this friend she wants to set you up with for the wedding." He said her name and my stomach dropped. I knew it. They'd tried this before. Years ago, they'd shown me her Instagram, listed her hobbies like a resume. Loves hiking, brunch, dogs, wants something serious. I'd said no then, very clearly. Not because there was anything wrong with her, but because I was tired of being treated like an empty chair everyone kept trying to fill. "I already said no to her once," I reminded him. "You know that." Jake frowned. "Yeah, but it's just for the wedding. It'll be fun. You can't be my best woman and show up alone, Danny. People will, talk." People always talk. I told him I'd figure it out, mostly so he'd stop looking at me like I was a problem to be solved. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, running through all the scenarios. Show up alone and spend the whole weekend fielding questions about my love life. Cave, and let them set me up with a woman I'd already effectively rejected once. Fake a last-minute emergency, get sick, lose my passport, anything. What I wanted was simple, a quiet weekend where I could be there for my friend without being turned into a conversation topic. The idea hit me while I was scrolling on my phone in the dark, half doom scrolling, half avoiding my own thoughts. An ad popped up, one of those sleek, too-perfect websites that promises companionship for any occasion. I clicked it. I told myself it was just curiosity, research, something to laugh about later. But my cursor hovered over "book now," while my mind raced ahead to that wedding reception, to the questions, to my mother's raised eyebrows, to Jake's fiancée's disappointed smile if her matchmaking fell flat again. I didn't want romance. I didn't want a date. I wanted cover. Someone who could stand next to me, smile on cue, make small talk so I didn't have to. A buffer between me and the world's expectations. So I filled out the form, palms sweating, and wrote exactly what I needed. Female client +1 for weekend wedding event. No other services, just company. The agency got back to me within a day. Professional, polite, discreet. "We'll pair you with Nico," the woman on the phone said. 27, experienced with social events, very charming. You'll like him. I did not need charming. I needed invisible. Instead, I got Nico. And nothing, absolutely nothing, about my life stayed the same after that. Nico and I met for the first time the day before the wedding at a tiny cafe near the venue. I arrived early, gripping my iced coffee like it was a stress ball, rehearsing the cover story in my head. He walked in exactly on time. Tall, taller than I expected for someone hired to blend in. Broad shoulders, warm eyes, the kind of effortless charm that makes people lean in without noticing they're doing it. He spotted me immediately, smiled like we were old friends, and slid into the seat across from me. "You're Danny," he said, voice smooth, confident. "It's good to meet you." I blinked. I had not prepared for him. Nico had this easy, bubbling energy that wrapped around everything in a soft glow. I felt like a grayscale sketch sitting across from a full-color portrait. "Right," I managed. "You're, Nico." His grin widened. "That's what the paperwork says." We went over the plan. We'd met through my classic car restoration group, real hobby of mine, so at least I could talk convincingly. We'd been friends for a few months. We were casually seeing each other. Nothing serious, nothing dramatic. He asked questions I didn't expect him to care about. "What's your brother's name again? Is Jake more talkative or more observant? Do you want me to hold your hand at the reception?" The last question made me choke on air. He laughed, lightly touching my wrist. "Relax, I'll follow your lead." He smelled faintly of cedar and laundry detergent. It was distracting. The next day at the wedding, he played his role flawlessly. My friends adored him. My parents adored him more. Guests I barely knew pulled me aside, whispering, "He seems like such a gentleman," or "You two look great together." Great. Together. Words that weren't supposed to mean anything. Nico chatted with everyone effortlessly, danced when asked, and even helped Jake calm down before the ceremony when the best man speech printer jammed. He made himself useful without being pushy, present without being overwhelming. The whole weekend, he acted like he'd known me for years, smiling at my sarcastic jokes, anticipating when I needed space, stepping closer when someone asked too many personal questions. At one point, while I was talking with Jake's grandmother, Nico gently placed his hand on the small of my back. Warm, steady, familiar. It jolted something inside me, something I shoved down quickly. This was temporary, a transaction, a solution to a social problem. When the weekend ended, I paid him the agreed amount, slipped him a generous tip, thanked him, and fully expected the story to end right there. But 3 weeks later, he texted, "Nico, hey, doing anything this weekend?" I stared at my phone so long the screen dimmed. Why was he texting me? I hadn't hired him for anything else. Maybe I'd misunderstood something in the contract? I answered honestly, "Me, Car Club Mountain Drive. Monthly thing." 10 seconds later, "Nico, that sounds fun. Can I come?" I frowned. "Me, you don't have to work that day. I'm not booking anything." Another message appeared almost immediately. "Nico, I know. I meant for fun." Fun? Fun? Nothing made sense. Escorting wasn't a hobby. Men didn't give up paid hours to sit in a parking lot with my mechanics club unless they had some kind of angle. Still, I said yes. And that was the beginning of the unraveling. On the drive, he laughed with everyone, asked real questions, got curious about old engines, even joked with Jake's cousin about polishing chrome. He didn't act like a man on the clock. He acted like a man who wanted to be there. Afterward, instead of a polite goodbye, Nico asked for my number to stay in touch. That night he called me, just to talk. No flirting, no agenda, just company. The next week we got dinner, then a movie, then another car meetup, 3 more after that. Not once did he mention money. Not once did he hint at being hired again. Every time I tried to figure out his motive, I hit the same wall. Why would a former escort voluntarily spend time with a client? Was he trying to build a pipeline of future bookings? Did he need help and didn't want to ask? Was he lonely? Was this part of some manipulative tactic I didn't understand? None of it made sense. Because if I was being honest with myself, and I rarely was, I knew the real problem. I liked having him around. Too much. His presence softened the edges of my day. His laugh filled the quiet corners of my apartment. His energy wrapped around my cold, careful heart and made something old and dusty inside me stir awake. But I didn't know what he wanted, and wanting something without knowing if it was real, that terrified me. The seed of conflict had already been planted, and I was the one watering it without meaning to. The night everything shifted didn't begin dramatic. It began with my therapist asking a question I wasn't ready to answer. I'd started therapy months earlier, company required after 2 colleagues died in a car accident. My boss said I was back to normal too fast, which apparently isn't normal. So now, twice a month, I sit on a gray couch and answer a man who speaks mostly in gentle prompts and raised eyebrows. Up until that point, therapy had been useless. He asked how I felt. I said fine. He asked me to elaborate. I said still fine. Rinse, repeat. But that day, he asked about my social life. "I hang out with someone sometimes," I said casually, scrolling mentally for the least revealing phrasing. "A friend?" he asked. "Not exactly." He tilted his head. "Tell me about him." So I did. I talked about Nico joining the car drives, about him calling in the evenings, about the movies, the dinners, the way he showed up uninvited but never unwelcome. I even mentioned, awkwardly, how he kept remembering small details about me, how he got along with everyone, how he never crossed boundaries but somehow kept getting closer anyway. When I finished, my therapist folded his hands and said, matter-of-factly, "It sounds like he might like you romantically." I laughed so hard I startled myself. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not. Just no. That's not what this is." He nodded slowly, the kind of nod therapists use when they're intentionally not arguing. "What makes you so certain?" I opened my mouth, closed it. What made me so certain? Because Nico was everything I wasn't. Warm, easy, outgoing, beautiful in that effortless way some men are. A natural flirt, a natural everything. And me? I was the woman who spent 7 years perfecting the art of emotional distance. "There's no way," I muttered. "Men like him don't go for women like me." He raised an eyebrow. "You sound very sure of that." "Because it's true." "Is it?" he asked gently. "Or is that something you've told yourself for so long it feels true?" I stared at the floor. I wanted to say he was wrong, that Nico was just being friendly, that maybe he was lonely, that maybe this was a habit left over from escorting, some reflex of connection. But none of my excuses held up when said out loud. I left therapy unsettled, my thoughts swirling like metal shavings caught in a magnetic field. The idea didn't make sense. The idea terrified me. The idea felt dangerous because if Nico liked me, everything I'd built to protect myself would crack open. That night he called. He always called around 9, after his shift or his gym or whatever his day held. I answered, trying to sound normal. Hey, he said, voice warm through the receiver. You busy? No, I said, just thinking. Dangerous activity, he teased. Want company? Company. That word again. I almost said yes out of habit, but the therapist's voice whispered in the back of my mind. He might like you romantically. And suddenly everything felt sharper. The way Nico's tone softened when he said my name. The way he asked questions no one else bothered asking. The way he kept hanging out with me for free. The way his laugh always came a half-second faster around me. Danny, he asked, you okay? Yeah, sorry, long day. You want me to come over? There it was. The question that, until that moment, had always felt harmless. But now it felt loaded. I know, not tonight, I said quietly. I need to think. A beat of silence. Not angry, not hurt, just waiting. Okay, he said finally. Whenever you want me around, just tell me. My heart twisted. After we hung up, I sat alone on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen. The room felt colder without his voice bouncing off the walls. Was I imagining things? Was I reading too much into kindness? Was he being friendly? Or was I the one pretending not to see what was right in front of me? The real inciting incident wasn't a dramatic betrayal. It wasn't a shouted confession. It wasn't a heated moment of passion. It was a simple possibility. Nico might actually want me. And that possibility cracked open something inside me, something I'd locked up years ago, something that scared me far more than being alone ever had. For the next few days, I moved through my life like someone rearranged the furniture in the dark. Everything felt familiar, but wrong. Off balance, too sharp around the edges. At work, I answered tickets on autopilot, reset passwords, unjammed printers, listened to coworkers complain about bugs I'd warned them about 3 months earlier. But underneath the monotony, Nico's voice looped in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. Whenever you want me around, just tell me. I hated how those words warmed something in my chest. No, I didn't hate it. I feared it. Wanting someone meant letting them in. Letting someone in meant they could leave. And I had built an entire adult life around avoiding exactly that. By day 3, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed answers. About him, about myself, about what the hell was happening between us. So when Nico texted that afternoon, Nico, car club meetup tomorrow, you going? I stared at the message for a full minute before typing. Me, we need to talk. 3 words guaranteed to ruin anyone's blood pressure, but Nico replied almost instantly. Nico, okay, when? Me, tonight. 7, my place. He sent back a thumbs up emoji, infuriatingly calm. Meanwhile, my heart spent the rest of the day auditioning for a percussion ensemble. The first real confrontation. By the time he knocked on my door, my apartment felt too small, too warm, too bright. I opened it, and there he was. Hoodie, jeans, hair slightly messy, like he'd been running his hand through it out of habit. He stepped inside, eyes scanning my face with quiet concern. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, I lied. We sat on the couch, facing each other like 2 diplomats preparing to negotiate a fragile peace treaty. Nico waited. He didn't push, didn't fidget, didn't try to charm his way through the tension. It made it harder. I talked to my therapist, I began. His eyebrows lifted slightly. About me? Yes. He leaned back, arms crossed loosely, not defensive, just attentive. What did he say? That maybe you, like me? A slow exhale, not a gasp, not a jolt, just acceptance. Like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. And that bothers you? He asked softly. No, maybe. I don't know. My voice cracked in frustration. I don't understand what's happening. We met because I paid you. Then you kept showing up and calling, and I don't know what this is supposed to be. He didn't flinch. He didn't laugh. He didn't make me feel stupid for saying it out loud. Instead, he nodded slowly, thoughtfully. Okay, he murmured. Then let me be clear. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm not angling for money. I'm not scouting for clients. I stopped escorting months before we met. That startled me. What? I wasn't working anymore. The agency contacted me about one last weekend gig with good pay. I took it to fund a vacation I never actually went on. His voice gentled. Danny, I didn't keep seeing you because of the job. I kept seeing you because you made me feel like a person, not a service. My throat tightened. He continued, voice low, steady. You're quiet and careful and blunt in this way that feels grounding. His eyes softened. You listen when I talk about work. You remember things. You don't treat me like a toy or a fantasy. Do you know how rare that is? I swallowed hard. But why me? Because I like you, he said simply, as if it were the most obvious answer in the world. I've liked you since the wedding. Silence. Thick, heavy, electric. I stared down at my hands, twisting my fingers together. I'm not good at this. I don't date. I don't know how to do relationships without feeling like I'm being peeled open. Nico shifted closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. You don't have to be good at it, he said. Just honest. My voice dropped to a whisper. I don't want something I can't keep. He finally reached out, gently taking my hand. Not pulling, not claiming, just holding. You don't have to decide anything tonight, he murmured. But Danny, I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to. Something inside me cracked, not painfully, but like ice thawing. I didn't say yes, I didn't say no. I just let myself breathe. Let myself feel the warmth of his hand around mine, the steadiness in his voice, the impossible possibility that someone like him might actually choose someone like me. And for the first time in years, the fear didn't suffocate me. It simply sat beside me, manageable, real, alive. As Nico squeezed my hand gently, his thumb brushing my knuckle, I realized the most frightening thing of all. I didn't want him to leave. Not tonight, not ever. I wasn't ready to say that out loud, but the truth had already begun pulling me toward him, slowly, irreversibly. And there was no going back. After that first confrontation, nothing was officially defined between us. We weren't dating, not really, but we also weren't not dating. We existed in this strange, liminal space, something soft, something steady, something dangerously close to becoming real. And people noticed. The first hint of trouble came during a car club meetup. It was supposed to be a normal Saturday. Waxing hoods, comparing engine mods, trash-talking each other's terrible parking. But as Nico and I walked in together, something shifted in the air. Heads turned. Conversations paused just a beat too long. He wasn't just the wedding date guy anymore. He was with me. Jake approached us like a man approaching a live grenade. Hey, he said slowly. So you two are, like, a thing now? I opened my mouth. No sound. Nico didn't miss a beat. Just spending time together, he said casually. Jake nodded, but the look he shot me wasn't subtle. A mix of surprise plus concern. Is this a terrible idea? And then the worst part? He pulled me aside while Nico chatted with the others. Danny, he whispered urgently, what are you doing? This guy. He was an escort. My spine stiffened. Past tense. Still, he did that kind of work. You barely know him. What if he... Stop! My voice came out colder than I intended. He's not like that. Jake stared at me, dumbfounded. Wow, he really got under your skin, huh? Yes, he had, and that was exactly what terrified me. 2 weeks later, I made the mistake of mentioning Nico during a family dinner. My mother froze mid-bite. My father blinked. Mark smirked like it was Christmas. So, my mom said slowly, this man you've been seeing, what does he do? He's a pediatric nurse. She brightened, finally something respectable. And before that? I hesitated for half a second. Mark's grin widened. He used to escort, he announced gleefully, like a child revealing government secrets. The room exploded. My mother dropped her fork. My father cleared his throat 6 times. My mother whispered, escort? Like a companion? Mark the Menace waggled his eyebrows. Oh, it was companionship, all right. Enough, I snapped. But it was too late. My mother's voice sharpened like broken glass. Danny, sweetheart, men like that don't settle. They don't commit. They don't love. The word love twisted something inside me. I wasn't ready for love, but the idea that he couldn't love, that hurt in places I hadn't realized existed. I left early, heart pounding, hands shaking. And Nico wasn't even there. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just a man who cared about me. Yet suddenly the world felt hostile toward him, and by extension, toward us. The next escalation hit from the other direction. Nico and I were downtown grabbing iced coffees after his shift. We were laughing, real laughing, the kind that makes your ribs ache when a man approached. Handsome, expensively dressed, confident in that slimy way rich men sometimes are. Hey, the man said to Nico, long time no see. Nico stiffened. I didn't understand at first. Then the man's eyes dragged over Nico, then over me, then back to Nico. Oh, he said, smirking. Is she a job, or are you doing freebies now? The words hit me like a slap. Nico stepped in front of me immediately. Walk away. But the guy didn't. Didn't know you'd branched out, he sneered. She doesn't look like your usual type. Then again, maybe she tipped well. My vision went red. Nico's jaw flexed, but he stayed calm. Too calm. Last warning, he said. Leave. The man scoffed, muttered something crude, and swaggered off. My hands were still trembling when Nico turned back to me. I'm sorry, he whispered. Why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything. He looked small, not physically, emotionally, like he was bracing for me to run. It's just my past, he said quietly. It shows up sometimes. I swallowed hard. So does mine. He exhaled shakily, relief softening his features. We sat on a bench, coffees growing warm, the tension settling like dust. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of the man, fear of losing me. That night, I went home alone. Not because I didn't want him with me, because I needed space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to face the truth I'd been avoiding. Nico didn't just like me, he valued me. He respected me. He protected me. He made room for me in every part of his life without asking for anything in return. And I was starting to need him. The quiet of my apartment, once comforting, now felt hollow, colorless, wrong. For years, solitude had been my refuge. Now it felt like evidence, proof that without Nico, everything was muted. And that realization terrified me more than any argument, any judgment, any past client could. Because needing someone meant losing control. It meant risk. It meant vulnerability, and vulnerability had teeth. A few days later, Nico showed up at my door unannounced, holding takeout, hair messy from a long shift, eyes tired but warm. I should have told him not to come. I should have kept my distance. I should have protected myself. Instead, my first instinct was relief. He stepped inside and smiled that soft, careful smile he saved only for me. Rough day? He asked. I didn't trust my voice, so I nodded. He set the food down, walked over, and without asking, without hesitation, wrapped his arms around me. I melted. Completely, silently, hopelessly. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't pretend, this wasn't casual, this wasn't convenience. He was becoming mine, and I was becoming his, and no amount of caution could stop the fall. The escalation wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simple. I could no longer deny that I wanted him, which meant there was only one direction for this story to go now. Deeper, more dangerous, more vulnerable, toward a point of no return. You'd think the lowest emotional point in a story like this would be loud. An argument, a betrayal, a door slammed hard enough to shake the frame. But mine was quiet, almost gentle. It began with a sentence Nico didn't mean to hurt me with, and ended with me realizing just how breakable I really was. We were at my apartment, a soft Friday night, with nothing special happening. Nico had come over after a long shift, face tired, hair messy, scrubs wrinkled. He collapsed onto my couch, head in my lap, sighing like he'd finally found a soft place to land. I threaded my fingers through his hair. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't guarding myself. I just was. He cracked one eye open. You babying me? I smirked. You're too heavy to carry to bed, so this is all you get. He laughed, warm and low. Then he said it. You're good to me, Danny. Better than most people ever were. Harmless. Sweet, even. But something in me recoiled, like he'd pressed on a bruise I didn't know I had. I was good to him? Good? That wasn't what scared me. What scared me was the truth behind the words. He trusted me. He valued me. He needed me. And somewhere along the line, without asking, without warning, he had become someone I couldn't imagine losing. That realization punched a hole straight through my chest. That night, as Nico slept beside me, breathing softly, arm draped over my waist, I stared at the ceiling in the dark. The weight of his arm felt both comforting and unbearable. Because suddenly, I wasn't Danny the solitary woman anymore. I wasn't the one who didn't need anyone. I wasn't the safe one. I was someone who could be hurt. It hit like a physical blow. If he leaves, if he changes his mind, if he wakes up one day and realizes I'm not enough, I would break. And I'd spent my entire adult life avoiding that exact catastrophe. I slipped out from under his arm, padded to the bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the cold floor, staring at the tiles. My chest was tight, my breathing shallow. I felt like I was drowning in a glass of water. I didn't cry. I rarely do. But my hands shook. Because letting someone in meant losing control. Losing control meant vulnerability. And vulnerability meant pain. Nico stirred in the bedroom. Danny? His voice was soft, half asleep. You okay? I'm fine, I called back too quickly. Silence. Then the creak of the mattress as he sat up. I panicked and locked the bathroom door. God. Even thinking about it now makes me want to bury my face in my hands. Nico didn't force the door. He didn't knock aggressively. He just spoke through it, quiet and patient. Did I do something wrong? No, he hadn't. But my silence made it sound like he had. He tried again. Talk to me, Danny. I pressed my forehead to the door. How do you explain to someone that you're terrified not because they hurt you, but because they matter? How do you admit that you're falling for them and that falling feels like tumbling into open air with no parachute? I couldn't, so I stayed silent. After a minute, he sighed, softly, sadly. Okay, he murmured. I'm here when you're ready. I heard him walk back to the bed. He didn't leave. That almost made it worse. The next morning was quiet. Not awkward, worse, careful. Nico made coffee like he always did. He set my mug on the counter, added the right amount of sugar without asking, like he always did. Except he didn't look at me. Not directly, not fully. Seconds stretched, minutes dragged. The silence felt heavier than any argument could have. Finally, he spoke. I don't want to push you, he said softly, but I can't be in something you're terrified of. His voice wasn't accusing, just honest, painfully so. I stared at my coffee. I'm not terrified of you. Then what are you terrified of? Everything. Absolutely everything. But he deserved better than my cowardice. So I whispered the closest truth I could manage. I don't know how to do this. He exhaled, defeated. You don't have to know. You just have to try. I didn't answer. He waited. And my silence, my awful, self-protective silence, hurt him more than any words could. He grabbed his jacket. I'm not walking away, he said quietly. I just need a minute. The door clicked shut behind him. He didn't slam it. That somehow made the break hurt more. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had before. Every room echoed with absence. Every forgotten coffee mug. Every blanket on the couch still carrying his scent. For years, solitude was my sanctuary. Now it felt like punishment. I sat on the floor against the wall, hugging my knees. Not crying, just numb. Nico didn't ghost me. He didn't disappear. He texted that evening. Nico, I care about you. I'm not going anywhere. Take whatever time you need. That should have comforted me. Instead, it broke me open. Because I didn't want time. I didn't want space. I wanted him back in my apartment, barefoot, laughing, turning my silence into something warm instead of cold. The darkest moment wasn't losing him. It was realizing I was the one pushing him away. Not because he wasn't good for me, but because he was. And because for the first time in years, I wanted something badly enough that losing it felt like it might shatter me. That was the night I finally asked myself the question I'd avoided for months. Do you want to stay safe, or do you want him? And for the first time, I didn't know the answer. For 2 days after Nico left my apartment, I moved through my life like someone had scooped out the soft parts of me and left the shell behind. I went to work. I answered emails. I fixed 3 password lockouts, 2 printer failures, and 1 meltdown from a salesman convinced Excel had a personal vendetta against him. On the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything hurt. Every quiet moment felt like a reminder of the space Nico usually filled. His laugh bouncing off my walls, his jacket hanging on my chair, his hand brushing mine during movies. Like he didn't even think about it. I pretended I needed the distance. But the truth was simpler. I missed him. So much it scared me. On the 3rd day, something shifted. I went to my car club meetup alone. I told myself I needed the distraction. Something hands-on. Something loud enough to drown out the echo of Nico's absence. But when I got there, people noticed. They always do. Jake walked up, wiping grease off his hands, brows furrowed. Where's Nico? I shrugged. Busy. Jake stared at me for a long moment, too perceptive for his own good. You two fought? No. Did he hurt you? No. Did you hurt him? I swallowed hard. Jake exhaled. Danny, look, I know I tease you a lot, but I've never seen someone look at you the way Nico does. That hit harder than I expected. What does that even mean? It means he watches you like he's waiting for you to let him in. Jake leaned against the hood of my car. And you watch him like you're afraid he'll disappear. I didn't respond. He continued quietly. You deserve someone who stays when things get messy. And that man, he's been staying since the day you hired him. My throat tightened. Jake wasn't emotional often. He wasn't poetic. He wasn't even particularly insightful most days. But he was right. And that truth stung its way down my spine. Later that day, one of the older club members, Rick, gray beard, denim jacket, permanently smelling faintly of gasoline and coffee, wandered over to where I was half-heartedly polishing the fender. You look like someone kicked your carburetor, he said. I huffed a weak laugh. Something like that. He nodded toward my empty passenger side. Missing your guy? We're not. It's complicated. Rick held up a grease-stained finger. I know complicated. Been married 40 years. Met my wife when she hated me. Best stuff doesn't start smooth. I blinked. Rick, I don't even know what he wants from me. He snorted. Honey, men do not spend hours talking about spark plugs and movie plots with someone unless they want that someone. That's not scientific, I muttered. It's male scientific, he corrected. Despite myself, I smiled. Then he grew serious. You overthink. He overfeels. You're both scared. He paused. Only difference is he's not running. The words hit dead center. Rick clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. If a good thing scares you, it's probably worth holding on to. Then he walked away like he hadn't just rearranged my entire emotional architecture. That night, still rattled, I opened my messages. Even after everything, after the bathroom incident, after my silence, Nico had texted every morning. Nico, hope you slept okay. Nico, I'm here if you need anything. Nico, no pressure, Danny. Take your time. No demands, no guilt tripping, no disappearances. Just soft, steady presence. And then, the message he'd sent that morning, which I'd left unread. Nico, I miss you, but I won't push. Just tell me if you want me around. I'll be there in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Not an hour, not maybe, not if I'm free. 10 minutes. My chest tightened so abruptly it hurt. Because there it was. Clear, simple, honest. A man who wasn't asking me to become someone else. A man who wasn't demanding perfection. A man who wasn't afraid to admit he cared. He wasn't running. I was. And if I didn't do something, I was going to lose him. Not because he wanted to leave, but because I kept pushing him too. I stood in my living room, staring at my phone, heart pounding like it knew this moment mattered. And then I typed, Me, are you home? He replied in under 10 seconds. Nico, yeah, you okay? My fingers trembled as I wrote, Me, can I come over? Another instant reply, Nico, do you want me to pick you up? God, even now he was offering ease, support, comfort. My throat burned. Me, I'll come to you. I grabbed my keys, pulled on the first jacket I could find, and drove. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't choosing safety. I wasn't choosing distance. I wasn't choosing fear. I was choosing him. Nico opened the door before I even knocked. He must have been standing right behind it. His face softened the second he saw me. Danny, he breathed. Come in. I stepped inside. He didn't touch me, not yet. He waited. Of course he waited. I'm sorry, I blurted, voice shaking. He blinked. For what? For hiding, I whispered. For pushing you away, for being scared. Nico exhaled slowly, like a weight had lifted off him, even though nothing had been resolved yet. You get scared, he said gently, and I get patient. That's how this works. I shook my head, tears stinging the corners of my eyes, tears I never let anyone see. I don't want you to be patient with me, because I'm terrified you're going to leave. Nico stepped closer. One, he said softly, I'm not leaving. He took another step. Two, you can tell me anything. Another step. Three, want me to hold you? My breath hitched. Yes. He wrapped his arms around me, slow, deliberate, warm, and for the first time in years, I didn't tense. I melted. Right into him. Because the turning point wasn't him giving me clarity. The turning point was me finally letting myself believe it. Believe him. Believe us. Once Nico and I crossed that emotional threshold, once I let myself lean, once I stopped pretending I didn't care, the world around us reacted. And not kindly. Fallout has a funny way of showing up, not as a single explosion, but as a chain reaction. One truth leads to another. One shift exposes the cracks beneath everything else. What happened next was not about us breaking. It was about everyone else realizing they no longer had any power over us. Jake had always been protective of me, annoyingly so. But after Nico and I reconciled, he spiraled. The next time we all met up, he pulled me aside with the urgency of someone who just discovered a ticking bomb. So you're really doing this? He asked. Yes, I said simply. With Nico. Yes, Jake, with Nico. He ran a hand through his hair. Danny, you barely dated for years, and now you're with a guy who... Stop. He froze. I know his past, I said quietly, and I trust him. For a moment, Jake looked genuinely lost. Like his role, Danny's perpetual protector, was slipping through his fingers. Do you really know what you're doing? He asked softly. No, I said honestly, but for once I'm doing it anyway. That was the beginning of Jake's humbling. And it didn't stop there. Because when he saw Nico with me, genuine, gentle, steady, Jake had to confront something uncomfortable. He'd misjudged him. And worse? He'd underestimated me. My mother tried being subtle at first. During a family dinner, she leaned over and whispered, So, is your friend still escorting? He's my boyfriend, I said. And no, Mark choked on his drink because he's emotionally 12. My mother pressed on. But surely you see why we're worried. His profession— Former profession, I corrected coldly. And what kind of future does he really offer? She whispered back. I looked her dead in the eyes. A better one than judgment and conditional love. Silence fell across the table. My father cleared his throat. My mother turned red. Mark looked like he'd paid money to watch the scene unfold. And here's the thing. They didn't have any power now. Because I wasn't asking for their approval. I wasn't asking permission. I was informing them. And they hated it. Even so, their fallback reaction, cold disapproval, only exposed how fragile their control really was. Once people recognize a former escort in public, they assume things. One man, someone who clearly remembered Nico, approached him while we were having coffee, just like before. Except this time, Nico didn't flinch. He pulled me gently behind him and said, "Not interested. Leave." The man scoffed. "What, too good for work now?" Nico's jaw clenched, but it wasn't anger, it was disgust. "Don't talk about her," he warned quietly. Her, meaning me. He didn't hide it, didn't downplay it, didn't apologize for caring. When the guy finally left, Nico looked at me with a mixture of worry and fierce protectiveness. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. And I was, because it wasn't my shame to carry. It never had been. But it was his for years, and watching him face it without flinching became its own kind of healing. A few weeks later, the car club hosted a big summer barbecue. Everyone came, friends, families, even people who hadn't touched a wrench in months. When Nico arrived, late because of a long hospital shift, I was mid-conversation with two new members. He walked in, spotted me instantly, and without hesitation wrapped an arm around my waist and kissed my cheek. Soft, casual, unquestioning. Conversation around us paused. People noticed. They didn't see an escort. They didn't see a client. They saw a couple, a real one, a strong one. Nico was tired, but the moment he looked at me, his shoulders dropped, his expression softened, like arriving had finally allowed him to breathe. He murmured, "Missed you," against my temple. And I felt something shift under my skin, something warm and terrifying and steady. Possession? No. Belonging. Not him claiming me, but me choosing him. The fallout wasn't ours to suffer. It belonged to everyone who doubted him, everyone who doubted me, everyone who doubted us. Because no one could deny it anymore. He was good for me. I was good for him. And what we had was real. A week later, I came home to find Nico in my kitchen, cooking dinner in one of my hoodies, humming off-key to a song he probably didn't know the words to. When he turned and smiled at me, warm, open, unguarded, I felt the last of my old defenses collapse. This was real. This was mine. This was happening. And I wasn't afraid anymore. The world could judge. Jake could fret. Former clients could sneer. My family could whisper behind closed doors. But none of it mattered. Because the fallout landed exactly where it belonged. On the people who underestimated what I was capable of choosing. On the people who believed my fear made me weak. On the people who thought my solitude meant I didn't deserve love. They were wrong. I deserved this. He deserved this. We deserved each other. And slowly, undeniably, we were winning. If someone had told me a year ago that hiring a stranger to stand next to me at a wedding would lead to this, late nights cooking together, shared keys on the entry table, laughter echoing off my once silent walls, I would have rolled my eyes and gotten back to debugging someone's broken VPN. But life has a way of unfolding in the places you never bothered to look. And love can sneak in through the smallest crack, especially when you've spent years sealing every door. Nico didn't move in officially. He just slowly collected pieces of himself in my space. A sweater on the back of my chair, a toothbrush in my bathroom, a stash of hospital snacks in my pantry, a habit of falling asleep on my couch waiting for me to get off late-night support shifts. One night, I found him dozing there with a blanket over his shoulders, my name half whispered in his sleep, and something quiet inside me whispered back. Home. Not the apartment, not the walls. Him. The peace he brought. The steadiness he offered. The way he held me like fragility wasn't something to be ashamed of. It happened on a drive back from a weekend trip. We'd stopped at a scenic overlook. Pink sky, spilling over the mountains, air cool enough to make me tuck myself under his arm. He was talking about something small, movies maybe. I wasn't really listening. I was watching the way light hit his face, the way he smiled when he looked at me, the way his hand twitched slightly, like he was resisting the urge to tuck my hair behind my ear. Something uncoiled in my chest. Warm, dangerous, inevitable. So I said it, quietly, honestly, without panic. I love you. He froze, just for a second. Then he laughed, soft and disbelieving, forehead resting against mine. Took you long enough, he whispered. I didn't look away. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small saying those words. I felt right. Nico never tried to fix me, never tried to fill the silence, never tried to force my heart open. He just stayed, and that was the difference. I had always thought vulnerability meant danger, weakness, loss of control. But with him, it felt like breathing after years of holding my breath. He showed me that quiet people still deserve loud love, that guarded hearts can still be held gently. That fear isn't the end point, it's the doorway. And some doors are worth walking through. I used to think I didn't need connection. That being alone meant being safe. That love was optional, like dessert after a meal. Nice, but not necessary. I was wrong. Connection isn't weakness. Letting someone in isn't surrender. And being loved doesn't erase who you are. It sharpens you. I learned that I'm capable of more tenderness than I thought. That I want someone who asks how my day was. That I like falling asleep with a warm hand on my waist. That love doesn't crowd me the way I feared. It steadies me. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening quietly from the shadows of your own fear, hear me. You don't have to be fearless to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be chosen. And you don't have to run forever. Sometimes life brings someone who sees you fully, your silence, your scars, your softness, and stays anyway. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Mine arrived with a man holding a cup of coffee, asking gently, "Want me around?" And for the first time in 7 years, I said yes. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because he made the risk worth taking. And that, more than anything, is what healed me.